Hey guys, welcome back to another Virgo Girl recommendation. And today's recommendations is A Complete Unknown. This is a movie about a certain period of time in the musician Bob Dylan's life. And it was a good movie. I watched it last night. I really enjoyed it. It moved along a lot faster than I expected it to a certain degree. There were some parts that was kind of slow, but for overall, I thought it moved fast enough that I could just watch it in one setting, and that's a lot for me because this movie was like 2.5 hours long, and that generally for me is a bit long. It says here 2 hours and 20 minutes, but you get what I mean. Timothy did a good job. You know, he was the main character. And I also really enjoyed Ellie Fanning's part where she played Sylvie, who was a love interest. And I thought her acting was great. I've seen her in other movies. I definitely can see the growth in her. And I love to see artists as they get older, maturing, and you can see them becoming better at their craft, if you will. And she definitely has a little range on her, and I enjoyed her portrayal of Sylvie Russo. Now, I think it was Sylvie, yes. So basically, this movie kind of just takes place like in the 60s, and it's a time where Bob Dylan was just getting started. I believe the movie starts off when he's about 20 years old. He's in New York City and he's just starting out in his career. Listen, I'm going to be completely honest with you. When it comes to musicians, a lot of times I can watch a documentary on pretty much anyone, even if it's a genre of music that I don't listen to, even if it's an artist that I'm not familiar with, because I personally love talented musicians. There's just something about a musician. It doesn't matter. Well, I should say a musician that's talented. It almost doesn't even matter what type of music they're playing. When they're talented, it's just so interesting to watch them become, whoever they're going to be. From the humble beginnings to stardom, it's just an amazing thing to see. With Bob Dylan, I don't know much about Bob Dylan at all, to be honest with you. I don't even know. I'm not familiar with him or his music or anything like that. There was one song that I think I was kind of familiar with, but that's neither here nor there. It didn't stop me from being interested in his story. It didn't stop me from now wanting to go and listen to his music now that I've seen this documentary, if you will. I don't even know if it's really is this considered a documentary? Or just, I don't know what this would be called. Would it be actually called a documentary since it's like just a period piece? Maybe. But anyway, so in watching this, I felt really just compelled to kind of go and research and listen to more of the things of his music aside from what the little bit that was kind of played on the film. With that being said, when it comes to the thing that draws me to these types of movies, it's the storytelling and it's also the hustle. One thing about a musician when they're first starting out, they are hungry and they are raw and they're talented and they don't have anyone to really stop them or to, kind of like mislead them, or not even mislead them, just kind of coerce them into doing something they don't want to do, if you will. I'll give you an example. So in the beginning, I feel like you're able to be free and play whatever music you want because there are no expectations. People don't know who you are, what you're going to be. So you get some of the rawest, most pure, just talent from the musicians at that time because they're new, they're hungry, and they're fighting for their career. They're passionate about it. Once they get into the industry, they're kind of labeled as whatever works, whatever worked the best for them. And then that's kind of like all the people want from them. And that's kind of all the labels want from them. When at times, that's not really what they want. They really want to do other things, or they want to, just do multiple things, if you will. That kind of was what this movie reminded me of. It reminded me of someone who started out doing music and people absolutely loved it. But then he kind of wanted to branch off and do something else, something new, something fresh. He wanted to kind of change with the times, if you will. He wanted to do more than just one thing. He wanted to be bigger than just what he was from those songs that were so popular. So he had more to give, if you will. And the labels and the people in his corner kind of wanted him to stay doing what worked. But he's like, no, no, no. And I think that, just in looking him up now and just looking, I kind of went back and kind of researched some of the things with him. It looks like he won, I think he won about 10 Grammys, if I'm not mistaken. And he just went on to become extremely, extremely successful. I mean, Bob Dylan, that's a name that is not like foreign. He's an icon in his own right. And the fact that in the beginning he had to really fight to be able to become who he is today. If it were up to the people in charge, I think he would have went a totally different route. I think his career would have been totally different, but he was like a rebel. That's another thing I loved about that period. Back then, I feel like people were not, and it could just seem like that because it was way before my time, but it just seemed like people were more pure and they were in it for the grit. It wasn't so much as I just want to make millions. I just want to, I felt like the people were in it for definitely more of just their passion for their craft. And they weren't going to let money or popularity or anything stop them. That's what I saw in this film, especially like towards the end when they wanted him to do a certain type of music. And he, even though everyone was against him, he still played what he wanted to play. And that was amazing just to see. The other part that was really great was the love story. The love story between him and Sylvie was just, it was touching because it really showed a very, a very simple dynamic between a very feminine woman and a very, I don't want to say, I don't really want to use the word. It's just a man who has options. I'll put it like that. Okay, a man who has a lot of options, and a woman who is just delicate and almost innocent and just very, very feminine. That's how I saw Sylvie. It was just so, she was just so beautiful. It seemed to inside and out. She was a person who seemed to have a good heart. She was, fighting for civil rights. She was an activist, type person. And the way they portrayed her was as this person that was very likable, very, just someone that I feel that Bob Dylan, it's almost like the one that got away, just someone who definitely had a special place in his heart. But, he was very young, 20, and he had a lot of options because he was just taken off as a musician. And when she met him, he was very new to the game. That's how it appeared, the way they brought her into the film. She met him early on, so they were good at that point. But then, things happened. He met other people, and there was this lady. What's her name? Joan. I think Joan is her first name, and her last name is it Baez? Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right, but Baez, but she came into the picture, and it was just, she was a musician, so it's kind of like her and Bob jailed together, through work. When you have something in common with someone, it can kind of like bring you together. And then once a romantic spark hits, one thing leads to another. So there was that aspect of it. And then you had their little relationship, which wasn't really, it was tumultuous. It's the way they kind of portrayed it. Like they were not, almost like a toxic relationship, if you will. Like it's hot and cold, and then you had Sylvie, who was just a sweet person, but sometimes being, how they say nice guys finish last. With Sylvie, I just felt like she kind of got almost the short end of the stick, but it seems like she was able to choose herself. And when I say she got the short end of the stick, I say that because I think she truly did, love him. And she thought that it was going to be something that it ended up kind of not being, because I don't think he could be what she needed him to be at that time. So although it was great that they had the moments, the good moments that they had in the beginning, I think towards the end, it was like too much for her. It was like tearing her apart to see the person that she loved not be, what she expected him to be to her, like faithful and be there, as a partner. All in all, I thought this was an interesting film, and I'm going to talk about why I think it didn't win the Oscars now. So it was nominated for many Oscars. Was it 8 or so? The reason why, I'm going to tell you guys, I say this all the time. People make documentaries, and when they involve, if the person is still alive, or even if the person's not alive and you're involved, like say the estate or family members sometimes, but especially when the person's alive and they're involved in the documentary, for the most part, forget it. You're not going to get what you want. When we go to watch documentaries, we want the good, the bad, and the ugly. Emphasis on the bad and the ugly. And it's sad to say, but it's just, that's life. We want to know what happened. What were you doing in those closed doors, behind those closed? We want the grit when we watch documentaries. And a lot of times when the stars are involved, it becomes sugar coated. It becomes, kind of, let's glaze over that part, and it's like, well, what happened, and you don't get the full details. This was a very glossed over, pretty version of this period. There were a lot of things that were left out that I think should have been put in there, and I think they would have won an Oscar. Example. So there was, I don't know if this is speculation, because I wasn't around back then, and I don't, like I said, I don't follow, Bob Dylan like that. But there's been some speculations, and I read that he even said there were some issues with substance abuse. Well, let's dig into that. Let's put that in there. Let's see that part. How did it impact you? Those types of scenes make things more realistic, if you will, and make them more dynamic to where I think it would have been an overall better film. And not just that. I mean, other things too. We want to know, like with the relationship, they were very glossed over. Now, I did read that the one with the Sylvie, the character that she was portraying, I think they changed the name a little bit. And then also, I think because of privacy reason, because he had so much respect for that lady, uh, there were things that they kind of kept out on that end, and I respect that wholeheartedly. But for the rest of it, it should have been more raw and more gritty, I think. They should have added more oomph to it, because it was very, you could watch it. It was a good movie, but it was very just kind of surface. We needed you to go a little deeper, and I think they would have gotten more recognition for the movie. That's my take on it. I still thought it was a good movie. It's a good watch, but it wasn't. It definitely could have added more to make it better, and that's my take on it. But again, I was definitely wanting to see it, so I got to see it, and it's called A Complete Unknown. Check it out. It's on. Where did I watch this at? I watched it on Hulu. So yeah, you guys can check it out on Hulu. It's like a Bob Dylan, and it came out last year. Timothy is starring in it. I think his name is his last name is Chalamet, I believe, and he did a good job. I think this guy is a good actor, overall. So I mean, you can't really you can't put it too much off on him. He can only act so much, and if they're not going to add all the juicy stuff in there, there's nothing he can do about it. He can only act to what the script that was given to him, right? So it is what it is. But I thought it was a good movie. I'm recommending it because, yeah, I enjoyed watching it. You guys, I'm going to close out the video. Until next time, don't forget to comment, like, share, and subscribe. Peace.